Even I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's a UK kind of mind master person called Darren Brown, and he did this show where he did an experiment with 3 people. One was positive, one was neutral, and one was negative. And they made them walk down the same street, the same strip, and they put a $50 note on the floor. The positive person saw it straight away and picked it up. The neutral one walked past it, questioned, went back and looked, and it was there. And the negative person didn't even see it, walked straight past it.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Fresh and Zesty, where we give you the tips and the tricks to help get you famous.
Facts.
Today with us, we have Ali from Listen Up Music. Thank you for coming on, man.
Mate, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. I've met you a couple times, like literally, I think twice.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, both times at 301.
No, well, yeah, of course, and then Cam Tamika's wedding.
That's
obviously.
right.
Yeah, I totally forgot.
Just
that.
to make sure you get really close to the mic, like make love with it. It's really weird.
Not too much.
Okay, it's still we're trying to be PG.
Yeah, sometimes. And yeah, like I mean, I've obviously because I'm mates with Cam and Tamika and stuff like that. I've known a little bit about what you guys do, in terms of Listen Up. But maybe if you wanted to tell us what it's about, especially, I mean, you know, Are You Okay Day was just last week.
That's right.
When this comes out, it'll be 2 weeks ago. Hey?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Anyways, when we're filming this,
well, fill us in. What is Listen Up Music? Because when I hear Listen Up, I think of the festival. So I'm completely way off. When he said someone's coming from Listen Up Festival music, I was like, sweet. But
now you're like, expectations.
I mean, look, after I talk about pigs on a spit and all that stuff, I mean, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I pop in, mate. Yeah. No, it's an interesting thing trying to kind of boil down what Listen Up is, but essentially we're a registered not-for-profit charity, and we are an events and services based charity. So solely for musicians and music industry professionals, because we started out as an arts organisation looking at TV, film, the whole lot, and then just realised there was so much work to actually be done in the music industry that we were like, let's just narrow our focus down. Let's just, see what we can do to help everyone in the industry. And yeah, so we've been a charity now for just over a year, but we've been in operation as an organisation for about 8 years in Australia. Went through a couple of changes in the early stages. And yeah, we're the home of Australia's first mental health songwriting competition. So yeah, just like any other songwriting competition, but the theme every year is a theme on positive mental health. So that's in its 5th year this year. Semi-finals are currently underway. Yeah, right. And then, yeah, our biggest and most ambitious thing is January the 16th, which will be Australia's first ever mental health music festival. So 4 stages of music, 1 stage of comedy, 1 stage of mental health programming, all at the Factory Theatre. And yeah, 60 artists all coming together, all in the around the topic around mental health. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell. We do a whole bunch of other things on the education side, but yeah, a music and mental health charity.
Yes, that's all. Yeah,
that's cool. Like, yeah, because I mean, I'm passionate about that topic. I mean, because I don't like saying I go through that stuff because I think everyone goes through ebbs and flows. I got a lot of questions that are going to be coming up, and I do like to preface people like it's not me being confrontational in the slightest. Like it's intrigue, because mental health, I find personally, it's such a tricky topic, So with the songs, and this is where like what do you look for in the songs? Is it how well it hits? Is it like, is there criteria that you're looking for that makes a song better for mental health or whatnot?
Sure.
Because I see that usually it's the ones that address the actual fucked upness. For example, like 21 Pilots is one of my favorite bands.
Yep.
He doesn't glorify it. He doesn't try and say that it's okay to feel that way. He just says he feels that way.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of liberation in the people that, you know what I mean? Like, that's it is what it is.
That's so really strange that you should say that about feeling and about being okay and feeling okay. I've literally just had a conversation before coming in about that very topic. There's a lot of people who say, it's okay not to be okay versus it's okay not to feel okay. And for me, there's a really big difference between the two. And to your point about 21 Pilots, how you're feeling, that talks to everybody, right? Everyone's had a day where they don't feel so good or they feel down. So for me to open up the conversation about mental health and really tap into everyone's psyche, it's a case of, let's talk about that feeling, right? You've had a bad breakup, or you've lost a family member, or lost a job, or whatever it may be. The feelings that associate to that are an impact on our mental health, because everyone's got mental health, just varying degrees of it. From
I like to call it mental fitness, just because I personally feel like the term mental health now, this is just my opinion, I feel like it's been so overused that it's like, I know when a lot of people hear it, it's sort of like whereas I'm like, I'm just training the fitness.
Yeah. And it is, it's the whole thing of mental health, and people talking about breaking the stigma or smashing the stigma or whatever it is. The word stigma has now become stigmatized because so many people are talking about it, So whatever works. I like mental fitness as well. Just like when you talk about your physical health, physical fitness,
exactly.
It's the same thing. There's kind of, in trying to get it to be okay and raise awareness and talking about mental health, it's almost, like you said, got to a point where people hear mental health and they automatically go to, this is going to be a depressing, downbeat. I don't want to talk about that. And it's actually, no, we all have it. We all have different degrees of it. When we talk about it, don't think it's going to be downbeat and depressing. So when we talk about our kind of songwriting competition and the themes that we have, we purposely have them as positive themes. So we don't have like a theme of depression one year, for instance.
Yeah.
This year's theme was connection, and we just thought, with isolation and everything else going on, the thing that people really crave and want is connection. So when we do the judging and we look into, what makes a good song, we have our typical categories for that. So we have, things like arrangement, structure, all that. But then we have relevance to theme. Right. So we look and delve into the lyrics. There's a few songs each year that don't have any lyrics and they're instrumental, and we look at how that ties to mood and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a real even split between the two. And in previous years, we've had incredible songs not make it through to the semi-finals because it just didn't talk to the theme at all. And we thought, we've got to be true to the fact that this is a mental health songwriting competition. Yeah. We can't just put a banger through that has nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, it's the statement that you said with it's okay to not feel okay, I love the extra layer that I've heard, which is like, it's okay to not feel okay, but it's not okay to stay there.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's that thing which, like, you have your own personal responsibility to make yourself okay. And I think that's where it's like that whole mental health, mental fitness space does get that shutter mode, because my fear a little bit with a lot of organizations out there now, and I'm not familiar with yours, so I can't comment, I fear that it starts to make the topic of being depressed or being like suffering from anxiety a cool thing, and it's kind of like a badge of honor. Whereas like when we sort of just go, all right, there are people out there who suffer from chronic depression and chronic anxiety. So this is not they're a small percentage of the population. A lot of people, though, I feel now, like I've said to people before, I'm like, you're not depressed. You're going through a shit patch and you're reacting to that response. Yeah. And as soon as you say that, it's like, you're being insensitive. You're being this, like, I cannot tell you. I mean, like Stace, Jamie, they can both tell you the amount of shit on social media I get about how I'm insensitive. I'm telling, like, based on what I'm saying, someone's likely to go commit suicide for that. And I'm like, one, you can't talk to everyone,
No.
But it's like that argument of like, if I know what's helped me through shit times is literally like, in a way, shut up, get over it. And this is not for everyone, but shut up, get over it, figure it out,
And you know what? It's a really, really fine line, right? Because,
exactly.
The sensitivity and sensitivity piece. The example that I always bring it back to is people who are anxious versus people who live with anxiety. Totally different things. So, if you are feeling really anxious about something, but you don't typically live in your normal week or month with anxiety, talk about how you're feeling anxious. Don't say you're living with anxiety. But again, even in that, that's a fine line as well, because
100%.
with any mental health issues or mental illness, it starts somewhere. So that could be the start of onset of anxiety. So you just have to, but what we try to do when it comes to your earlier point about people helping themselves is, there's a phrase that's thrown around in mental health all the time, which I hate, which is saving people's lives, right? For me, saving someone's life as if they're on their phone, looking at the phone, they walk out into the street, they don't see a car coming, you go out and pull them out of the way. Yeah. That's saving someone's life, 100%. Right? But when it comes to mental health, I believe that we should be giving people the tools and resources to save themselves. And there is then the onus on them to go, we've given you all these things, we've signposted you, we've given you access to these things. There has to be something from you to take responsibility to want to take those next steps. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down. You know, they feel in this horrible space, and again, to you saying about not feeling okay is okay, but don't stay there. Try to get out of it. There are so many people who know about all the supports, but they just don't take the next step. And it's like, we can handhold you and get you to that support, but then you've got to be the one that picks up the phone, or you're the one that's got to, take that next step.
Yeah, and it's a long journey too. Like, I mean, one of my tattoos in here, I'll show you it just because, I mean, you can tell I'm really into this topic. It was like when I was 24, I noticed, like, I was super fucking negative. Like, everyone that would walk past, it'd be some sort of judgmental thing. Like, everything had a negative twist where it was not needed. And it was like that thing we spoke about earlier with, it's not mental health. I sort of, because I've always taken my physical fitness as a thing, like, we get it. Like, you go to the gym, cool. You go to a psychologist, you're a Fruit Loop. Whereas, and I hate, like, that's the stigma that I don't like. Whereas I kind of, it was up at Byron actually at Splendor in the Grass, where I had this epiphany. I'm like, all right, this is a muscle, it's a freaking complex one, but I need to start training it in a way. And like, I had that, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's like others over self, think positive, and then blood type for my family.
Wow.
And then if you hold your thumb there, you can feel my pulse. So that's what keeps you alive. So like, it was a really interesting thing to see where my girlfriend at the time, I said to her, we need to start training our brain to be positive. And like anything, you feel like a fucking idiot. You just feel like, I'll see someone like, say, really judgmental, negative thought, like a girl who's got a crop top and it's coming out a bit. Like the asshole in me would be like, ugh, why the fuck would you wear that?
Right.
And then I'll be like, whoa, catch that thought. She's probably really cool. I probably have a lot of laughs with her. That felt so dumb saying it. Right. Because it was so uncomfortable. Because again, the momentum was negativity, that to go that way was like hitting the reverse. And it was a very interesting thing seeing that at that time, because I caught it, and then probably like a week later, that girl went the other way and developed like a real heavy bout of depression, went through a lot of other things. And it was just an interesting thing to see that, this is how close you can teeter, where if you make that decision to go that way, and I mean, Stacey's always picking me up for like, the way in which you said that was but my goal now is always like, how do I become likable? Because everyone wants to be liked. That's the like, everyone wants to be liked. Once you realize, that's my responsibility, not anyone else's, it's like, shit, I need to start being more nicer. I need to start talking to people, lifting people up, not being an arsehole. Like, weird. That saying, like, if you meet 1,000 assholes, maybe you're the arsehole. So, it's true, isn't it? It's very true.
It's so great.
And I knew a lot of assholes. I was at probably 990 at that point. But yeah, so that's real cool that it's an ownership thing, because that was, again, I knew a little bit about it, and that was, I mean, my biggest thing. I said to Jamie, I'm like, look, I really hope they go this way, because otherwise there might be a bit of an argument on this podcast.
Sure.
Because there is definitely that thing where it's like, if you come out saying you suffer from depression, you could just be in an environmental situation where it's like you don't like your job, but you won't leave it because of fear of money, or you don't like your friends because they're negative or they're being assholes, like because they are the asshole of this situation.
Yeah.
So it's
interesting you're saying about it's funny, right? I've gone through so much mental health training over the years, and one of the big things that I advocate for is safe language in terms of how people who have good intent can, unfortunately trigger people by saying things that were meant in a good way, but they just didn't. And there's two things that you've said that are potentially unsafe, which you probably have no idea about.
Yeah, do tell.
So the first of which is one that I'm super passionate about is the phrase commit suicide. It's used all over the media, or was until the last few years, until these amazing guidelines for safe language came out. And it just has 3 columns of, the things to say, the things to not say, and then suggested alternatives. And a lot of them are kind of light bulb moments. And I think the reason why I'm passionate about that one is because it was a huge one for me. The word commit makes people think of either committing a sin or committing a crime. So when people hear that phrase, and people have, reporting on someone having done that, in certain circles, it makes people think that they've committed a crime or a sin or something as grave as that. So that puts that in a box or a place which is not something that you want to talk about. So preferred language is things like taking one's own life or died by suicide, as opposed to using that word.
Would that also be like, again, because people don't like to commit a crime, could that also, I mean, this is just devil's avocado on this one, but could the terminology of commit suicide then also make it be like, shit, well, I don't want to do that?
Well, yeah, it all comes down to people who make attempts on their life or take their own life. They don't actually want to do that. That's not the end result. It is a cry for help. So the phrase of that word commit again is that is exactly what they want to do, and it's not. So it can also go the other way, where you just makes sense. That's not so. Yeah. So that's one. But the other one was when you were just saying about depression and this whole sense of people suffering with something. Yeah. Right.
I hate that term too.
And so so I tend to say that people live with depression because the element of suffering for me is that for every minute of every day, that's what you're experiencing. And the thing is with people who live with depression or anxiety is they have good points too. Yeah. And, they can have a laugh or they can go out with their friends and people look at them and go, I would never know that they had anxiety or depression. Look, they were laughing. And it was like, they can do that and still live with this as well. Right. So, I tend to move away from that suffering as well, because you think of the word suffer, it's like literally living with that constantly. Yeah.
Because a guy who I went to school with took his life probably a year out of school. Same thing, all his friends. He had a night out with his friends the night before, and it was very planned. Like the police found out he'd done his research on how to successfully do it, but no indications. He'd hung out with his friends the night before, and
everything seemed normal.
Literally said to them as they left, because I know this because I heard from my friends who told me, they were like, he literally said, "This was an awesome night, guys," and obviously in hindsight they're like, "Shit, that was his sign off." Yeah. Yeah. But obviously in the moment when you're hanging out with a friend, they're like, we did not see that coming.
No, and you wouldn't be thinking that. Yeah. You'd probably be thinking, it was. We had an awesome night too. Yeah. Loved it. And it is. It's so, it's that thing of if you don't want someone to know something that's going on with you, we can be the best people about hiding that. If you don't want someone to know something, you'll almost go the other way. So that's why, when you see people in party atmospheres or people who are almost enjoying themselves more than you think they normally would, that's a kind of a sign to go, they're trying really hard to cover something up, something's not quite right, as opposed to, oh my god, look how loose they are tonight, I've never seen them like this is so awesome. It's like, actually maybe that should be a kind of a thought to you to go, maybe something's not quite right. Yeah. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You say that to them and they go, no dude, I'm just having a great time, nothing lost. But if you catch it, then you potentially help someone. And ultimately, in those situations when they're feeling like that, they're feeling lonely, they're feeling isolated, they're feeling like nobody can see them. You say that to them, it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah, because that's my thing with alcohol. Like, I don't drink, and now it's more just a health and money thing because it's fucking expensive.
Yeah.
But I remember, you know, if you've ever read a book called Irresistible, I highly recommend it. It's so good. It's about behavioral addiction. So sometimes even stuff like, you know, depressive feelings and stuff like that, it can become a behavioral addiction without us knowing. But with alcohol, for example, like it can be a behavioral addiction, not to getting drunk, but it's like, you know, I can't hang out with my friends unless I'm like that.
Yeah.
Also, it's like if I have a shit day, straight to the bottle. And I was very fortunate when I was 19 that my girlfriend at that time, I had a lot of girlfriends in this podcast. Woo! Sorry, babe. She broke up with me at 19. I remember straight away, like my mates were like, "Oi, let's go out and just get smashed." And I'm like, "No, like I'm not getting trolley." Like at that moment, it was more because I know how dumb I am when I'm happy drunk. I don't want to go and get sad drunk because who knows what the fuck's gonna happen. And also now in hindsight, I was glad because I also didn't want to use alcohol as a device to sort of connect
for
to
enjoyment.
Bad problems. If something's bad coming, don't turn to the bottle.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, or if it's drugs or whatever it is, you know.
Well, it's just it's subtle different phrasing changes, right? It's like getting together with a group of friends. You should be talking about the great time that you're going to have, the stuff that you're going to catch up on, all that kind of stuff. And if there's drink there, then that's great. But actually going out and saying we're going to go out and get hammered, that's the first priority. That's like the people that you're going to see and the things that you're going to experience. That's not first. Like,
and you're connecting with escapism as well, which is a very dangerous thing.
100%. And you know, everyone needs a certain level of that. But if you're going out and seeing friends and it's always the same people that are going, let's get hammered, you go, why do we always have to go out and get hammered? Why can't we just, I don't know, go and bowling or putt-putt or something instead? It's like,
that happened to me after I quit bar work, you know.
Yeah, really?
While I was bartending, it's what you do. Like, you know, it's a part of your life. You're like, okay, finish my shift. Yeah, I'll have a few drinks, whatever.
That's the behavior. It's that habitual thing.
And like, I remember when I stopped bartending and it was just, you know, working on music and stuff. And people would be like, yeah, let's go out. I'll be like, yeah, cool. You know, like thinking that we'll go out, like you said, like get smashed, whatever. Like just have drinks, but it always just led to getting absolutely trolleyed. But it's like when they were like, oh yeah, I don't really want to go out and drink. I was like,
yeah, what do you mean?
What are we gonna do? Like, no, hold. Like, and it's like,
do you talk?
It's like, oh, you can. Exactly. Yeah, I was just like, oh, there's other things that you can actually like. Yeah, we could just go to the movies. Yeah, we could just, you know, play putt-putt. Like, there's a mountain of options that you could do that didn't involve the slightest hint of, you know, that regularity. Yeah. And I was like,
and it's also like you were saying about behavioral, but in that situation too, it's situational as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you were in a bar and because it was normalized, you were around it all the time. Yeah. What are you going to do when you finish? Everything else is closed. You know, everyone's going to go home. So what can we do before we go home? The only thing you can do is sit there and have a drink. And it's like, well, that's not healthy either.
It was not.
No.
It was not.
Because that's the thing. It is like, especially with mental fitness, it's like, I think I know what's really helped me in the past is 20 minutes. It's not like I'd meditate, but I also use it as more like a stop all distractions. Like a phone's a distraction. So like, you know, if people eat like alcohol, it's a distraction. You know, turning on Netflix, like, I hated my day at work, or I hated my day at like whatever happened, and then they just sit and turn on the TV, and it's like stimulation, keeping the brain going.
Yeah. And they're not actually
not diving in.
Yeah, they're not going, I want to watch that show. They're going, I'm just going to stick on the TV. And then they scroll through and they're like, oh, nothing's on. And then they put something on that's like the best of a worst set of things to watch. And it's like, why would you choose to do that? Like, and it is, and I think Netflix is a great example as well. You know, the whole coining of Netflix and chill and stuff like that. So it's now become this thing that's like, no, this is what society's doing, so I should be doing it. And it's like, do you actually want to? Do you actually want to go and sit and watch that, or are you just putting it on because you don't know what else to do?
Yeah. And even that, it could start taking away. I mean, this is where sitting down with nothing and actually exploring what you're thinking, which is, it's not easy. Like, I'm not going to pretend like it's an easy thing. It's like anything. It takes a bit of time. But I know, like, for example, I got stuck in a Netflix habit of like a couple of hours after getting home from work. But I noticed that was causing me an anxiety reaction because like I'm there going, what am I doing? But then like, as Netflix is, the episode finishes, I'm like, just one more.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and then
you don't even have to make that decision because it just automatically starts for you.
And so it gets like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I want to be in bed earlier because I got to be up at 5. So now I'm anxious because it's like this thing of I'm anxious because I want one more episode, but I need to go to bed. And I'm like, shit. And then I watch one more, and then I'm like, I'm too tired, so I go to bed. Then I wake up, and because I haven't had enough sleep, I'm anxious because I've woken up.
Exactly. And then you start, and it's an awful cycle. You start the next day, you go to work, you struggle through the day, you get home, and you're absolutely knackered, and you're like, what should I do? I'll just sit and watch it. And then it just keeps going and going.
Yeah, but it's really important that we have that sit back time and just go, all right, because everyone knows, like, you know what I mean? Like, even if you're in a bad relationship, you know, but you don't want to address it. But even like those little habits, you know, like Stace gets annoyed at me because I'm like, all right, no more TV this week. And she's like, it's so extra. I'm like, no, I'm noticing how I'm feeling and I need to stop it. Like nib it in the butt before it becomes a real habit.
And for you, that's fine. But, you know, in relationships or working relationships, friendships, everything, like if you make that, you've come to that conclusion yourself and you make that decision for someone else, it's like, no, I'm not where you are. You
100%.
you might think you've watched too much, and that's fine. But I'm going to sit here, and this is okay because and it's just keeping that communication open, you know. And
And do you like? I mean, when you talk about it, like, besides the music, do you guys talk about like techniques or exploratory methods, like myself with the figuring out, like just exploring the brain? What do you go in with that?
Yeah, 100%. So we have we on social media we've put together like a mental health resources for the music industry toolkit, and it's just signposting people. So for Are You OK Day and World Suicide Prevention Day, we put those things up for people and get them to share them because it's the easiest way. But we have a mental health music course, so it's a 3-hour course where we basically take people through all of the things like we said, safe language, self-care, get people to make a self-care plan so that they can look at it and refer to it, so that if they're feeling that they're getting into a rut or a bad cycle, they can take themselves out of it, and it's things that they've written themselves for themselves that help them. So that's really helpful. And then we go through music and the pitfalls and the things that to watch out for with, you know, isolation, spending lots of time with no fresh air, no sunlight, all that kind of stuff. We you know, and
That's what he likes, though.
Well, no, it's so true because I mean, even yesterday, like, sorry to cut you off. Yesterday I was in here for I don't know, like 12 hours, and the day before that I was in here for 14 hours. And I get in, and there was light outside, but I didn't see the daylight and after I came.
You need some vitamin D supplementation.
Well, sometimes I do. I mean, I've always suffered from a lack of vitamin D because of, you know, what I do. But like, sometimes it's really necessary because I feel, you know, like there's some weeks where I'm just like it's I know it's going to be a big week. I know I'm not going to be outside at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I've got to, you know, like, you know, I won't watch Netflix at nighttime. Like, if I finish work, no screens until I go to bed because that'll just kill me because I'll just end up scrolling through Instagram for hours. Turn off all my screens and stuff like that, and just when I get home, go to sleep. And like that'll, at least when I wake up, I won't have that like, oh yeah, I've just spent the whole night like watching Netflix and stuff.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing about the industry, right? Is when you look at why the stats are so high in the music industry is all the impacts on it. So, you know, you look at a regular office job versus something like working in a studio all day. The work in the studio has the isolation, the lack of sunlight, the lack of exercise, lack of good food, all that kind of stuff, right? You look at an office and you're like, well, you potentially with big windows, you go out for a walking lunch for an hour, you meet up with friends, you're not in isolation, and it's like to try and tackle the issues in the industry is not just giving people the tools for themselves to do it. There needs to be systemic change. Yeah. And it's so hard because a lot of the things in the music industry are around alcohol, drugs, nightlife, lack of sleep, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, we can give people these tools, but if you've got a 16-hour day and you have to get something finished, then where are you going to put those things into your day? How are you going to change things?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't take sessions. Well, I mean, I try not to. Like, it's very rare that I'll have a session before midday now, because I need that time in the morning to at least go to the gym or do something that's not related to
See the sun.
Yeah, have maybe 10 minutes in the sunlight, you know, like, but at least something where I'm not in a rush to get out of bed because I've had a late night, you know, and I feel like past 12, that's okay for me.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter really what time I go to bed, but if I don't have a session until after 12, I'm sweet. But that's just me.
Do you ever catch yourself like in a routine where you're like, you know, I need 2 or 3 days away from the studio just for like
I feel
reset?
like personally, I feel like that's been building up for a while because I haven't had a proper time off. I'd say, because even during COVID, like if I wasn't here, and there was like 2 weeks where I stayed at home and took all my stuff home and worked from home, and I was like, well, that was cool, but like, you know, I have this environment for a reason.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, 2 weeks, that's cool. I can go back into the studio. I won't do sessions. I'll just be by myself. But at least then there was, you know, Sean next door and Danny.
Yeah.
And they were here. So there was a few of us, so I wasn't just by myself. And then Toby joined us as well. So, then we had a gym.
But with
So it's great.
but with the impact of COVID as well, like you're saying, like when are people in the industry supposed to have taken a break, right? Because everyone knows how decimated the industry's been,
Exactly,
especially with live music and everything else. So it's like, well, actually, I'm not doing this because I know that working for, you know, 16 weeks straight is a good thing. I'm doing this because I actually need to put money on the table.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's like, and that's where I think government and big organizations, that's where they need to step in, because it's like you're talking about mental health and you're putting more money into mental health than ever, but how are you going to help those people who the things that you're expecting them to do, they can't do because they need to they need to bring the money in. So
it does feel like especially the government in Australia, they don't prioritize art though.
No, not at
it
all.
definitely
Not at all.
prioritize building units, but
Yeah, definitely. No,
You know-
there's been a massive shift in, you know, I mean, like, you know, there was always some support for the arts industry, but there was a massive shift.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just before COVID hit, and then obviously when COVID hit, and there was
It's
just
decreasing
like,
now.
no real support.
yeah, well,
I don't know what you-
nightclubs, they shut nightclubs down as much as they can, like the lockdowns. It's definitely like, I feel like, at least Sydney, that's what I see. I don't see the rest of the country, but it definitely feels like there's like almost sounds over the top, but like a fight against art here in a way. Like, you know, that the lockouts shut down all the clubs. I mean, like the clubs, I mean, it's still get drunk and get wasted, which doesn't help mental fitness anyway.
But we have rules in place for that. You know what I mean? There's RSA guidelines, and you know, if you're not sticking to them, then that's on the onus of the venue, of the managers. That's on them.
Yeah,
and you know,
they're heavy fines.
and they're heavy fines. So you'd be unsmart to ruin that. And you know, they're so quick to give out those fines as well. Oh my god. They're so quick.
We were both in bars. Woo! And then the people get angry at you too.
Yeah.
They'd be like, you know, it's my right to drink. I'm like,
It's like drinking.
no, this is the opposite.
Yeah,
It's the
exactly.
opposite.
Well, no, like yeah.
you show me your set of printed out guidelines.
We'd have
say that
people
you can do
abuse
that.
us.
Yeah.
Absolutely
That
abuse us for
Yeah.
breaking the rights. And I'm just like, oh, what the crap?
Yeah, but it's, you know, like beyond that, you know, like there's still a reason that people want to go out. You know, like people don't just want to go out and get absolutely trolley. People want to go and see live music. People want to go and see, like, you know, DJs play and stuff like that. So it's, you know, like, I personally feel like there's been a massive attack on the arts industry.
Yeah.
And
I don't know what you guys feel with the government piece. Like, you know, absolutely hearing what you're saying about kind of what feels like an attack on the scene. With the funding piece as well, I actually feel like the government don't actually know what to do
100%.
to help
Yeah.
the industry.
Yeah.
So they're just like, we're almost not going to give money if we don't know what it's going to be for.
100%.
And I think that there should be a lot of work done with that, with, you know, consultation with the people, the peak bodies within the industry, which didn't really happen with lockouts until towards the back end of it.
So
It's like-
basically people marched and basically
Yeah.
demanded it.
and
you
it
know
shouldn't
what I mean?
take
It
getting
shouldn't
to that
take
stage.
that for
It's a complex issue though, because it's like, it's a big cycle, you know, like I don't know about the rest of this country, but I know in Sydney, it's like you do a unique show and people are like, oh, I got to go like out. I'd rather stay home at Netflix. Like it's so much on the art. Like, there's a responsibility on the artists. Like, how do you make Australians, or at least Sydney-siders, give a shit to come and like to pay to see you?
Yeah.
You know,
But I feel like that's
it's a big cycle of like venues as well, like helping venues like little bars survive so that they can afford to have, you know, artists come and play. There's so many parts into it. I don't think there's an easy answer. Even if the government threw money at it,
not at
it's
all.
not
And
going to help the problem.
Yeah, and
You know?
it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be a super quick change as well. This, like you said, it's a systemic change, so it would take time.
100%.
But
Well, it broke down slowly, and I think it'll be built up slowly.
Yeah, but it's not like there's a lack of, I guess, sources or what's the word?
Resources?
No.
We're having another Windows shutting
Another
down.
mind
mate.
blank.
every time. Lawyers use it when they're like referencing like an old case studies.
Case studies.
There's a
Okay.
whole bunch of other
never gonna guess
countries that like the live music industry and the music industry is so well funded, and it's the idea of why you go out and how you go out. It's not like there's nothing for us to grasp on and work towards. And yeah, if you, like you said, like if you had those industry people in there with the government, of course the government's like, well what do we, sure we can give you money, but what's it going to do? Where's it going to go? But it's like, well, okay, well, yeah, sit down with us. Like, don't just brush it aside because
or
you
decide
think,
yourself. Like this whole live music fund that they're putting together, like getting live music back, and you're like, that's fair enough, and totally agree that we need to bring live music back, but it's almost like you're just kind of in that sentence when you're talking about that, ignoring the fact that the pandemic's still going on. It's like, yes, we can bring it back, but we can still only do restricted numbers. We can still do this. And it's like, where's the gap that you're going to fill between selling out a 30 cap show versus what would have been a 500 show?
100%.
Yeah. Well, another point with the issue, I think, which just came to mind. I remember with my shows back in the day, they hated live shows at the venue, which we will not name, because they said as soon as the show starts, like alcohol sales stop because everyone's watching the show, and like so the venue is like, the more live music we have, the less money we make because people are there to watch the live show. So what I was trying to like build after that, because obviously, like, again, this is where artists can help go, all right, speak to the venue, but also the venues have to talk to them, because the venues, I find, my experience, they didn't. Because I'd be like, all right, even though I sold out that show back in, like, the first big one, they didn't want to put me back on because they're like, we didn't make much money at the bar. And I'm like, you also put me on a Sunday because you wouldn't give me another day. And I sold out a Sunday.
Right.
And I go, all right, tell me, how do I help you win? Because if you win, I win, we all win. Yeah. That was like pulling teeth out of them. Yeah. Like, they just couldn't grasp the concept that an actual artist might have a business brain. And then I was figuring out a way to like, I'm like, first of all, I need a Saturday. Help me sell it out. And then I'll have a DJ event after. And people drink when there's a DJ event after.
Yeah.
And
that's it. It's the out of the box thinking, right? It's not going, okay, we're going to have alcohol sales and then we're going to have a show and that's it. It's like, there's obviously income streams for you with like merch and stuff. But so think about it in that way for the venue. It's just like, can we do prepackaged food plus ticket deal, or prepackaged drink and or can we do something else entirely? But it's that lack of people going, oh no, we can't do that. We sell drinks and we have music, and that's what it's like. No, we need to challenge that and look at different ways of being able to bring it in so that live music can continue and it's not all dependent on how much money is taken over the bar. Yeah,
and I think it's really important. We speak all the time. A lot of artists don't have that business mindset because they're creatives, and that's 100%, totally cool. Yeah. But they need to start putting that hat on, because I remember a friend of mine had a spot at a bar. It was like a 3-piece show, and it was an actual gig. They were getting paid $400, but they had a minimum requirement of bringing 20 people in, which was $20 a ticket. They were outraged. They go, it's not our responsibility, it's their responsibility to bring people in. It's like, No. The reason that Justin Bieber gets a stadium show is because he fills that stadium from his hard work. Yeah. And I think that's really important, and it'll help with mental fitness, because guess what makes people feel good? When they're achieving shit.
Yeah.
But I think that's where everyone needs to start thinking like, we say it like it's an easy thing, but it's a very complex, like it is. It's a real chicken and egg scenario.
That business brain bit though is a really interesting one for me. So, on the creatives piece, we want the creatives to create and give them the opportunities, the maximum opportunity to create the best work that they can. But there is a business piece. And so for those that have representation with, agents or managers or whatever, there's a responsibility on them to be. And sometimes agents or managers are just a mate or somebody who's just helping out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we're planning for 2021 with Listen Up is we're going to be doing a 2-day retreat, which essentially is going to be a combination of music streams, but not just your usual songwriting camp stream. And on the mental health side, not let's do yoga in the morning and then give them some nice food at lunch. It's like, no, let's weave the whole thing through it. But a key part of that is going to be educating people on the business side.
Yeah.
And going, if you don't want to do that yourself, you've either got to take responsibility that there's some things that are going to be missing from your product or, when you put it out there. So if you don't want to go, get your representation to go, or even get somebody who's in your camp to do that stuff so that when those questions come up,
somebody can
you've
answer
got someone that, that can answer it. And I think that business education part is
that's
real
important. Yeah. Because I mean, I went to a college to study music, and there was modules on the business, some modules on the business, which was great. It wasn't enough.
Nah.
It wasn't like, of course I studied audio engineering and sound production, and that's great. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to do. But it wasn't until I went in to obviously create my own job, because I mean, how easy is it to just, walk into a studio I guess 301 or something and spend all your time interning and then, slowly build your way up to being a part of the team and then joining the team. And I understand that that's a process, and that is a process, you have to earn your stripes. I totally get that. That's such an important thing. And especially in such a business like a big studio where there's certain elements and certain gear that, we got to know that you're going to look after it before we start to pay you to be here. But majority of the jobs in this workforce are created yourself.
Especially with the internet, you don't have to go that traditional route.
No, you don't have to. But people also don't know what questions to ask and what things they need to know.
Yeah, they don't know what they don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
So, as you said, with 301, they'll go through, they'll get all that training, they'll get all these pieces as they go, because that is essentially, it's a corporate, and they've got the structure and the team and everything else. For yourself, setting up on your own, it's like, where are the resources for people to make sure that they can learn those things? And because they don't know and nobody's telling them, they're just like, okay, I'll just continue to create. And then there's these people release music, release it themselves through, their own distribution, and they're just like, why did only 15 people listen to it? Like, well, because you don't know the bits you don't know. It's not that you won't do them. It's like nobody's telling you. It's not obvious where to get this help.
Maybe there's I don't know if there is or isn't a networking style thing, or because I mean, when COVID hit, I work from home, and same thing. Excuse me. I noticed that I was bored. And also, I was getting angry as a result, because I'm just and then just because of lack of finding out information, Googling's great, but at the same time, just chatting to someone and going oh shit, I'd never even thought of that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even think to Google it. So I joined a business networking thing, and I've noticed just how I am here, just huge jump, because again, but this is my personality, not a lot of people like that. I'll see someone and I'm just like, hey man, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking suits that are millions of dollars, but I'm just like, I realized a lot of them are actually open to talking to it. Even
totally.
Stace went there. Stace went there the other Friday, and she was expecting to be not liking it, and now she wants to go again next week, because she was like, that was fun, chatting with people that earn a crap load of money, and you're like, oh crap, they're just a human.
Yeah,
that
and you
wants to
find with
talk.
so many of them that they're happy to impart the things that they've. It's just there's not opportunities for those.
And if they're an asshole, who cares? You don't want to be their
What
friend.
What have you lost? You've just realised that there's another asshole in the world.
Yeah, literally.
And I mean,
I've got 909 to go.
I mean, to the absolute credit, 301 puts on the socials. Well, obviously not at the moment, but they put on the socials that we met at a couple of times, and that's a great place for people to interact with people in the industry. But then it's It's another step from just being in the same area and then going over and talking to those people.
Yeah.
And, you see somebody you
It's
recognize
effort though. It is effort.
only through Instagram, and you're like, oh, just, like, they're probably just wanting to like chill out and don't want somebody coming up to them being like, oh, hey, like I saw you on Instagram, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like it's...
And there probably is sometimes like that, but again, you don't know until you talk to them.
You don't know until
Exactly.
you actually make that, make that decision to go and talk to them.
And also,
Yeah,
it's how
100%.
it's also how you approach him. Like,
Oh,
if
of
you
course.
came up like, like P Diddy, what's up? He's gonna be like, all right, piss off, dude. Whereas he's like, hey man, I love your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Like,
Who doesn't want to hear that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing as well, like Jamie, with the 301 socials, they are billed as like a networking social event. They call it a social because they don't want it to be stuffy and they don't want it to be uncomfortable, but it's an event for people to talk and get to know each other. And I think that the more of those that happen, otherwise you're going to go to a gig and you're going to be trying to network and talk to people either just before the act's coming on or when it's finished, and it's like that's not the right place for that to happen at all. But that's the only place that people really can do it.
and also be careful of trying to sell too soon. That happens so much with, like, it's not just music, it's everything. Like, if you're meeting someone for the very first time,
you create a rapport.
do not say to them, here's my demo. do not utter
No.
those words at all. Like,
it's there is an art to networking, 100%.
And it's a strategy.
You build a rapport with someone. You don't talk about the things you want to talk about straight away. Basically, it's just like you get to know someone, and like over time, conversations here, conversations there, and then once you have a rapport with someone, then you can delve. I was like, hey, look, I just wanted to ask you this one question, like, what do you think about this? Or do you mind checking this out for me? I just need a set of ears, blah blah blah.
And it comes with experience of doing those things, right? And for people who work in corporate, they're in meetings all day, and it just happens that they don't go to a class where they learn how to network.
Yeah.
They just by doing it. And if there's not opportunities for that to happen in music, then it's essentially like you going into some big school playground at a new school going, oh, who am I going to talk to? What am I going to say? Like, am I going to make any friends?
That in itself is a skill that's learned too. And you learn by crashing fucking hard at first. Like, it's like, but it's in itself, like, meeting artists, meeting people, schoolyard, like you said, like the first few times. But then once you realize the worst thing that can happen is them being an asshole, and you're like, okay, I mean, I'm still alive. That's cool.
Yeah. But also realizing as well that they're probably feeling exactly the same thing. Going, oh my God, someone's coming up to talk to me. Oh my God, what am I going to say? And you're like, you even just joke about that and just go, hey, this is super awkward. Like me coming up and saying, can you be my friend?
That can backfire though. That can backfire. It backfired for me last year. I met one guy from Logan Paul's crew, and I never get starstruck, but for some reason my tongue started doing like backflips in my mouth. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And I said a joke like, because I was sucking up so hard, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm trying to suck your dick. And I don't think it landed.
Well, I mean,
he's like, oh, and I'm like, bye.
I feel like in that scenario, different words.
My tongue back. Oh, different words would have been so much better.
Yeah.
But again, I was like, the brain's doing this thing, the tongue's doing that. And I'm like,
maybe we should put a list together of like the do's and don'ts. One of them should be don't tell someone
that.
you suck the dick.
Yeah. That's
I meant like I'm sucking up to you.
Yeah.
And it came out like that. I'm like, oh shit. And like, I mean, he's forgotten it well and truly by now. I haven't, as you can tell.
Exactly. And you won't until if you see him again, and then you can have one
He'd be
experience.
like, aren't you that guy that said you wanted to suck?
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh crap. But again, like, I mean, some people can let that instance plague them.
100%.
And just if you can think of something that someone has said to you that you've forgotten about, and you're like, oh yeah, that person, like, I mean, he's got more important things to think about than weird shit that people have said to him.
He's probably had people say weirder stuff than that.
100%.
But for you,
probably people,
that's the weirdest
that is
thing
the
you've
weirdest thing
said.
I've ever said.
Yeah, so it stuck with you for sure.
I mean, look, I hope he remembers me. Maybe that was the catalyst.
Watch this space.
Watch this space, guys. But linking it back to mental fitness, I think that's an important thing too. Nothing has meaning except for the meaning you put on it.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, Stacey and I have had this conversation literally in the last few days because there's been a few things that have eaten her up about it. I'm like, do you think that person's sitting at home right now thinking about this?
Yeah.
And it's always no, or maybe at least 99.9% of the time. And I think that's where and it's hard because I used to be the same. Like, I could go home and tell you everything I'd said that day. everything and the way in which it would have been interpreted. It was always negative. It was never a positive thing in my head. And once I cannot explain how I realized it doesn't. I think it was when I had the ownership to actually go up to the person and say, hey, what I said, did you take that the wrong way? If so, I apologize.
Yeah.
That ownership of I'm human, I fuck up, was probably the most empowering thing I think I've ever had. You know?
And that doesn't happen to anybody, you know, that self-awareness. But for me, it's, again, a couple of days ago I was actually speaking to Ron from 301, and he was talking to me about energy, and I was just like, dude, this makes so much sense. It's so simple. But this whole thing of that, you know, energy can't be created or destroyed. It's just shifted.
Yeah.
And the way that we interpret any situation, we interpret it either positive or negative. And, you know, all we're having our experiences, right? We're deciding whether it's positive or a negative. Yeah. And then, so when you were talking about, you know, earlier in your life, when you were doing these things and processing them, when you were doing negative responses to it, that was by the way that you were doing it. So I think you coming to the realization of a different way of thinking was you really just kind of resetting how you responded to things that were happening to you.
And it's taken over a decade. Like,
yeah, some people get it straight away. Some people don't get it in their entire life. But, you know, just realizing that, you know, taking some ownership of this is how I have decided to react to this.
Yeah.
And trying to change that.
Yeah.
Which is not an easy thing.
Yeah, well, that's someone said it. What I heard recently, it was like, nothing in nature is good or bad. It just is.
Yeah.
Like you see a gazelle get taken down by a lion. Nature as a whole, like that's what it is.
That's just what happens. Yeah.
But if you look at it from the point of view, the gazelle, horrible.
Yeah.
It's a negative thing. The lion, positive. It's eating today.
Yeah.
Whereas when you realize that the it's our own human ego that puts on a label of something being good or bad.
Yeah.
And so, but if you see it realizing the big thing, you know, nothing like if you get
that's
rear-ended,
yeah.
life still goes on. Like in your car, like you know.
Well, that's it. Once you have those experiences and you process that as a negative, it then becomes attached to that. It becomes a memory and it becomes ingrained. So that, sorry to keep bringing it up, but that experience with Logan Paul, you process it at the time as negative and it's attached to a memory now. So
I looked at it already as like a funny thing. I'm like, this is gonna be a great story for years to come.
Yeah, there you go.
I walked away from it just going, man, shit.
Yeah. But to tie that to mental fitness, like you've been able to revisit that and reevaluate it and put it into a positive slant. Yeah. I think for people who are living with issues, their responses are constantly putting things in a negative bucket.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's not as easy as just saying to them, well, just, see that in a positive way. Yeah. But that's the shift that needs to happen with those people where they're taking it in, even if they take it in as neutral to begin with, even if they don't assign it as a real positive, that shift away from that. And it sounds like you've had some of those realizations and have started to do that yourself. How do we get other people to do the same thing?
I think it's definitely just that thing of that focus, you know, like everyone talks about mantras or whatever, like they get it with business, like I'm going to be rich or I'm going to be this but I know I've recently started going like, I don't know, things like I'm a trusted and respected leader. You say that over and over again. When you do something that isn't in line with that, you're like, eesh, what do I do to fix that? Yeah. Or at least attempt to push it back towards that needle towards it. Or like, sometimes I just go, I am happy. And it feels weird saying that, but you know that law of attraction rule, like if I don't want to be sad, your brain hooks onto sad, so you stay being sad, whereas it's like, I want to be happy. And the more you say, I want to be happy, you start, your brain starts trying to figure out ways to do it. And again, like I said, when you start off, like it feels stupid saying it.
Oh, you do?
It feels so uncomfortable. It's like wearing your underpants backwards. It's horrible. But
nobody should get used to wearing an underpants.
All right, it slowly turns around. Okay? They're these like new inventions.
But it is like you're saying about how silly it sounds or how stupid it is at the beginning.
100%.
It's like one of the biggest things we talk about in our course that we give to people. We give them a gratitude diary. And for those that don't know, it's exactly what it says it is. It's a diary that you keep next to your bed. And before you go to bed every night, you write 3 things down that you were grateful for that day. And it said, the very first one that you do, they say you can't come up with 3 because you're so not used to
100%.
doing that. And then by the end of week 1, you're struggling to keep it to 10 and you have to boil it down to the 3 that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
But doing that at the end of the day puts you in a positive mind frame for sleep. So you sleep better and you wake up in the morning already looking for things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple thing. And it's just like, with people saying, oh, you should eat well, or you should diet, or you should exercise, or you should do all this. You go, yeah, I know. But people don't make that connection, actually do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then they complain that they don't feel good. And you're like, well, we've given you these things.
Yeah.
And
But again, words, they keep saying, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
I don't feel good. If they, for them to then feel good, that feels uncomfortable. No, I don't feel good because, I made $100. Yeah, but so-and-so has 100,000. Like,
Yeah.
because
It's
again,
like,
that words.
Yeah. Even, I don't know if you've ever seen it, there's a UK kind of mind master person called Darren Brown, and he did this show where he did an experiment with 3 people. One was positive, one was neutral, and one was negative. And they made them walk down the same street, the same strip, and they put a $50 note on the floor. The positive person saw it straight away and picked it up. The neutral one walked past it, questioned, went back and looked, and it was there. And the negative person didn't even see it and walked straight past it.
Interesting.
And it was right in plain sight in the middle of, and it's the same thing with that as well.
I find a lot of money on the floor, actually.
There you go. There you go. That could say a lot about how your mantra and how you approach the day. But seriously, and so that, telling themselves over and over, I don't feel good, and I'm only making $100, they're making 100,000. It's the same thing. They're not seeing the good in it, and therefore there could be opportunities that are just completely passing them by because they're just thinking so negatively about it.
Yeah.
But none of these things are easy to. It's easy to identify, but
it's not
how
easy
to change them.
Well, that's why the term mental fitness aligns best with me, because just like with physical fitness,
Something you work on.
if I don't exercise
flick a
for a
switch.
year,
Yeah.
I'm going to be unhealthy. But if I train even just a little bit, like 20 minutes a day across 3, 4, 5, 6 years, it'll get better. And also, like, obviously, like with anything, 20 minutes will feel short after a while, so I'll do 25 and then 30 and so on.
Yeah.
It's the same with mental fitness. If I'm just that little bit every single day, but if I don't do something like reassess what I want or say what I want or whatever like that, give it a month, there's a chance again, because I can just start going the other way. Because I don't know if you knew this, but Huberman, I forget his first name, he's a neuroscientist, and they said the most addictive part in the brain is mild anger and mild discomfort, more than dopamine.
Wow.
So, and on an evolutionary point, it makes sense, because if you're mildly dissatisfied with something, like I'm hungry, this is crap, you're gonna go hunt.
Yeah.
Or I hate my job.
Yeah,
you're gonna go do it.
It's that thing of not settling, right? It's just always constantly trying to improve or better yourself.
So, but the problem with that now with social media and stuff like that is the reason why social media looks so negative is, again, because it's the most addictive part in the human brain. So people post more of that shit that gets them mildly annoyed. There's nothing you can do about that, though. So it's this feedback loop. And plus the algorithm is designed to show you what you engage with the most. You engage with the negative shit, it keeps pushing it. And just like I said, with fitness goes that way, negativity goes that way as well, and just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've seen it with like certain close people in my life in the recent years, but really COVID burst that bubble. I know people listening to this probably think like, Blake's positive all the time. Jamie, Stacey can testify. The first few months of COVID, shit really hit the fan. In one of my other things, there's a reference to that tattoo. And I've seen it with people very close in my life, and I had to overcome that as well. Like, again, it's not an even keel, which is what I want anyone listening to this. If life was straight, it'd be boring,
Absolutely.
Whereas those ups and downs, it's like, it makes life interesting.
Yeah, you learn
just
to
have to know-
appreciate the positives more as well, but it's just
Yeah.
how you manage that downward ones.
Yeah, and it was huge lessons in life too. Like, the negativity you learn.
We never stop learning. That's the
Exactly.
thing,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, deep stuff, tough stuff as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty obvious for me. why I'm so passionate about this stuff as well. Because,
very important, yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of people, when they talk about mental illness, they say, you know, that's a real difficult thing to try and make a difference to. What I really love about mental health or mental fitness or anything like that, just with people and associating with that feeling again that we talked about, is that you have the power to be able to help somebody just by doing something really easy, like asking them if they're okay, or
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And that's what I love, is empowering people to be able to go and signpost and support and help others. Getting to those people who are in that cycle of negativity breeds negativity. That's where I think we can make some big changes. And yeah, some of the stuff we've talked about today will hopefully challenge some people's thinking about that and go,
Yeah.
maybe they got some good points that we need to go and
No, 100%.
address.
Yeah.
Do you try and mitigate stuff that they consume? Because I know, like, we just watched a show called The Punisher on Netflix.
Yeah.
Amazing show.
It's good.
But I did notice after watching, binge watching those episodes, because it's a violent show.
Yeah.
Very violent.
Very violent, extremely violent. So good though. I did notice, even just internally, I was getting a little bit angry at just general day-to-day things.
Yeah.
You know, like, and
It's like, here's an
the
example
shoe shifts
for you.
and stops.
Here's an example for you, like with Entourage TV
Best
show.
show.
You watch, I personally love it, but you watch enough episodes of that and you start swearing and everything, like
Talking like Ari.
does. Exactly. You're like, oh, this is maybe not a good thing. If I run into someone who's a fan, they'll totally get it. It'll be great.
Yeah.
But just to so it's funny about how to mitigate against consuming too much stuff. I guess the biggest and best example in recent years is with 13 Reasons Why on Netflix.
I heard that
So-
rates went up when that was out, that
Yeah.
show.
Well, do you know what? The premise of it and shining a light on it and everything, I completely agree with that. What I have a real problem with is the people who made it for the last episode of the first series. They were consulted by some experts who said, you need to not do this because, again, to safe language and safe talk, one of the biggest things that you don't do in the mental health space is talk about method or portray method.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
so you talk about the fact that they died by suicide or they took their own life, but you never mention kind of
How.
where or how.
Yeah.
Because for somebody who's
like a
in that
workbook.
mindset, you're kind of giving them potential tools. They got consulted about that and said, no, we just think it's really impactful. And they couldn't see the difference between positive and negative impact. What happened after they had that episode where there were 6 copycat suicides around the world, where the people were staged it exactly what the person was wearing, where it was, everything else.
Yeah.
For season 2, they were like, okay,
crazy.
maybe we were wrong. Maybe we'll take some advice for the second season. What's done is done. And there was no ownership of the fact that they could have had 6 people not having died
Yeah, they'd
on
still be
their
alive.
hands.
Yeah.
So things like that, I talk about that when I do public speaking engagements and stuff. I talk about the fact that if you're going to watch that, I don't personally condone it. If you're going to watch that last episode,
Yeah.
getting people's eyes
Because
wide
what's the
open.
story? Because I haven't seen it. It's basically, isn't it like a correct me if I'm wrong, a teenager who thinks taking their life will work at getting back at the people that were mean to them?
And through a series of cassette tapes with the 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah, okay.
And so it was really great for millennials in particular who were associating with some of the feelings and the things that we're going through, but just how they ended it was just frustrating.
Because it
that
tends
they had
to sort of
this
glorify
huge,
it.
Yeah, they had this
doesn't it?
huge opportunity and they were doing so well. And then after that, it was like all the hard work, all the good stuff that you did has just been undone in
undermined.
one thing where, and this is the problem, right, with people who haven't had training about mental health but are passionate about it, and that notion of intent, right, that everyone's got this good intent, and so people using unsafe language, it's not because they don't want to, and you educate them and then they change it, that's great, but they were educated, were talked to by the experts,
And they still chose to.
you know, and
Because
the
art's
thing,
tricky. Art is tricky.
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
Beautiful art is true, but unfortunately, it also that's why music touches so many people.
Yeah.
They say I think they say that music triggers your brain just short of how sex triggers your brain.
Wow. Okay.
You'd like, yeah.
I didn't
so,
think you were going to go that way. I thought you were going to go with
Yeah, did not expect that.
well,
By
look, I
comparison.
said sex and both your eyebrows went up. So obviously,
I thought you were going to say smell, like it's that close to sense of smell where it can transport you back in
I don't
time
know.
to certain things. But
well, yeah, that too. But no, like so, it's equivalent to sex. Maybe smells third. Okay. But that's why it what you say in the music, different frequencies, sounds can definitely impact how we feel, what we think. Like I remember in our, one of my teachers in primary school, there was I don't know if what you were saying was foofy, but it was like that death metal stuff. She said like people are more likely to take their life listening to this music.
yeah. So there's been a study done on the different genres, and we touch on that in our training as well, where there's certain music that you listen to elevate your mood, or certain that makes you more productive. And yeah, another area that is so underfunded and under-resourced is research in mental health music. There's only really one big paper that's ever been published, and it talks about that and says that heavy metal and hard rock music not necessarily makes people more likely to take their own life, but has a negative impact on their mood. So do it in small doses and things like that. But yeah, it's again, there's not much resource out there to look and learn from, which
it's
again
hard too,
goes to funding.
Well, people follow, like any business is going to follow the money. That's the hard. Again, there's no win-win, I guess, because if there's a shitload of people that want to listen to death metal and that's paying a lot of people's pockets, it's sort of like, but
But
what
you
do
know
we
what?
do? I mean, it's a hard.
It is,
I'm not
but-
saying one's right or wrong, but
No, not at all. But have you seen, they used to have those parental guidance stickers for language. Have you seen anything that's any sort of a warning for heavy metal, like or anything like that? What's to say, and I'm not coming up with a solution, but what's to say that if that is a trigger for negative mood, then what's being done about informing people of that, so that when they listen to, even if it's in the liner notes or Spotify, or even like the first track, just to go, love that you love our music, listen to this or whatever, but just be aware, if you're not in the greatest space, this may impact. I'm not saying that's the way to go either, but there doesn't seem to be any conversation even happening around that. So go where the money is, and they want people to listen to it, but let's just put some warnings, or let's put some things for people to think about.
It's all about trying to figure out education of it too, because I know, like, play me Bring the Horizon while I'm working out. I work out like a beast.
Yeah.
But I ain't going to listen to that at home, because I'm just going to start punching walls or something. So I try and even it out with, like, R&B or hip hop or something like that, where it's more like, all right, this is how I react. But again, that requires the individual to figure that stuff out for themselves.
It's funny you should say that. So we've just partnered with a new app that's been created in Silicon Valley, which it links to your Spotify, and based on the songs that you listen to, you rate them based on how it makes you feel, what mood it is.
Okay.
So you can say angry or productive or bubbly or creative or what. There's all these different things, and based on the songs that you've rated, it creates automatic playlists for you. So you go, I want to be productive. You can put on this productive playlist, which is based on your musical taste. And it's steeped in kind of mental health learnings, and we're going to be activating it for our festival in January and doing things with our ambassadors, because what else it can do as well is, if you're listening to certain types of music that it sees are associated with you saying they're sad or whatever, we're going to do a thing with our ambassadors where they can have some responses that are sent to the listener to say, hey, I see that you've listened to like 10 really sad songs of mine.
Gotcha.
I've been in a space where I've not been good as well. Yeah. You'll get through this, or I'm there for you, or whatever, so that they can have interactions with the artist as well, which will help them to not only, be aware of what the music's doing to them, but also how good is it if one of your favorite artists is messaging you saying, it's okay to feel not okay.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
So awesome. Stuff like that I love.
What about the dynamics of that? Because obviously, like I said, with Bring Me Horizon, it would really depend when you ask me that question.
Yeah.
If you're asking me at the gym, like, how does this make you feel? I'm like, productive as hell. But if you ask me if I was listening at in my office,
Yeah.
I'd be like, I want to kill people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
So
like,
it does. It does.
so-
It timestamps it as well.
Oh,
so it
okay.
gets to know different times of the day and different things, and you also rate your mood on 2 different scales. So from good to
Yeah.
bad, or from happy to anxious. But also with that as well, the way that they've set up the moods is you probably wouldn't put productive for being at the gym. There's like unstoppable, or there's all these other ones that
Okay, yeah,
relate
yeah,
to
right.
certain things that you're doing. So it's not going to be foolproof, right? But it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely. That's awesome.
What's the name of it? Can you say?
Yeah, it's called NSU, ENSU.
ENSU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Check it out. It's really, honestly, it's really cool.
That's wicked.
I'm gonna write that down right now. Done. Wicked. Sweet.
yeah.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah,
that was fun.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in.
No, thanks for
It was
having me.
awesome meeting you too, and yeah, it sounds like I'm just super pumped that you guys realize it's ownership within the individual as well.
Yeah.
So-
Otherwise, this would have been over after 5 minutes. So.
I would have been like, I fucking hate this. You're part of the problem. But yeah,
No, it's cool. And to both of you as well, like, so super pumped and happy that you guys are actually embracing and talking about this stuff as well. You know, the more people that can talk about it, and, you know, I'm hoping that people listening or watching this, you know, they're going to, obviously there's some tough stuff that we've talked about, but also there's a whole heap of stuff to make people realize it's just an everyday conversation. It can be part of just
Yeah.
chatting with
Yeah, definitely.
your mates. So thanks for shining a spotlight on it as well.
thank you for bringing it up,
Yeah, no, it's really, really good.
and thank you for what you're doing too. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I mean, I don't know how emotionally draining it must be at times, or not. Maybe not the right word, draining, but I mean, I know even when I had getting a conversation with a friend who's in a low mood and I'm not in a low mood, I'm like, man, this shit is bringing me down. And I'm like, you know, so it takes a very unique individual to combat that.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I think you said it the right way. It can be draining, absolutely, because, you know, you're putting yourself out there with a topic constantly, and, you know, just to your point about Bring Me the Horizon, listening to that over and over and over can alter me talking about this and living it, because I do this. I'm also work as the wellbeing manager for the Woolworths Group, and got a big family at home, and so yeah, there's lots of stuff happening in my life, and
Yeah.
and yeah, talking about this all the time, I have to have really strict self-care in place.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
and
Emotional agility.
yeah, and realize when something's impacting that and going, actually, it's super important what I'm doing, but what's more important is making sure that I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not okay, I'm not going to be helping anyone.
Yeah.
And I've got to practice what I preach as well. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Cool. Awesome. Do you have socials? Listen
Yeah,
up
yeah,
socials?
if
yeah,
you
of course we do.
Tell the people.
Tell everyone where they can find you guys.
Best place is probably Instagram. So Listen Up Music org is our handle, or just search for Listen Up Music. We're also on Facebook and YouTube, and we also have playlists on Spotify as well. So yeah, that's the main ones, I think.
Just follow it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Hit that follow button.
Yeah, and guys, when you I think last thing as well, like if you ask, "Are you okay?" Be careful with that as well. My parents used to ask me that all the time, and I'm like, I was in a fine mood, and it would
Yeah.
piss me off being asked. So
Right.
it's like there's no right or wrong.
No.
There's just sometimes maybe asking them in a different way other than just the generic, "Are you okay?" Like, hey, what's going on?
You've got to be
Like-
prepared for the answer, right? If you ask someone,
100%.
it's become almost a kind of a pseudo greeting in Australia now.
Yeah.
It's just like,
And it's usually
if you're
via
asking,
text.
wait for,
It's
yeah.
usually text,
Yeah.
which isn't effective.
No, but if it is, and someone says no, know where to go, right? That's the
Yes.
next
Know
phase
the
for us.
follow-up,
Is there's a level of awareness in this country, but there's not the right amount of confidence for people to know where to signpost people. So jump on our socials or our website. You'll see just a one little page handy resource card. Store that in your phone or print it off or whatever. And if you ask someone, they say no, at least you know where to signpost people and go, have you tried calling here? Have you tried looking at this website?
Yeah.
Have you tried this meditation or whatever it may be?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
bring
just
in
be
the
prepared.
information too. Like Stacey told me, don't always try and fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes just
absolutely.
listen.
Yeah.
Well, if lastly from me on that is with men, it's really interesting, right? We automatically go into solution mode. So
Yeah.
for any males that have female partners that are watching or listening, what happens if our female partner comes to us and says, you know, I've had a really shit day? the first thing that a male does is, I'm going to solve this problem for them. And actually, all the female wants to do in that situation is have you listen. So you not only going into solution mode, but then talking and not letting them talk.
Stacey's clapping off camera.
Yeah.
It's not gonna help at all. And it's so hard, right? Because we always think that we want to have a solution to a problem, and that they're just not wired that way. So you saying, when you go and do this, or when you do this, or we'll do this together, they're going, I just wanted to talk. Like, I don't need you to tell me what to do. Just shut up. Listen to
Have
me.
you seen that video? What's this video called? The nail in the head?
Yeah.
It's not the nail?
They can help their man as well by telling them, hey, I just want you to listen, or hey, I need you to help me find out a solution. So
Communication is the big
help
thing.
the masculine do what they're best at as well.
Yeah, communication's the biggest thing. But yeah, if you guys haven't, like, search the thing like it's not the nail or something like that, and have a good laugh. I'll show you after.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching Fresh and Zesty. Please make sure you subscribe and hit us a couple likes, because the more subscribes and likes we get, the less Blake has to comb my beard.
I'm so over this. I actually kind of like it now.
It's really, it's therapeutic.
It's very therapeutic.